I think you have to have this inner drive, this passion to just keep wanting to get to another level. There are going to be sacrifices when you're doing this because you're basically in a room by yourself and you're shedding your skin like a snake because you got to put the time in. Nothing is going to happen without you putting in the time. No one's going to do it for you. It has to come from you. You have to be invested in this and do it.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Business of Better podcast with Dr. Jan Chuback, where we talk all things business and entrepreneurship related to people in the healthcare industry, doctors, nurses, healthcare providers of all sorts. And today, it is my distinct pleasure of introducing my dear friend and long-term colleague, Mr. Jan Sloves. Jan, welcome to the Better Business podcast.
Great to see you, John, and thank you so much for having me on your newly launched podcast. It's very exciting.
Thanks very much. It's exciting for me too, especially to have colleagues like you on the program. I want to get right into it. Um, what are you doing entrepreneurially right now?
Okay, so I recently launched a site. It's called Ultrasound Unlocked.
Ultrasound Unlocked.
Unlocked, yeah. So, as you know, I've been in this space for better part of 30 plus years. And, I've done a lot of consulting over the years. And I've worked in every clinical situation that there basically is, be it a hospital, an outpatient lab, et cetera. And, the one thing that was very constant in my travels, which has been pretty much worldwide, is that, people that are doing ultrasound, there are definitely some gaps in terms of, their ability to perform an ultrasound, interpret an ultrasound, and to really, get it to its highest level, in those both of those segments. So that was kind of the catalyst behind putting together this website, again entitled Ultrasound Unlocked. And what I want to be able to provide for folks is just a place to go where they can get their answers questioned. They can see high level imaging.
Now let me interrupt right there. When you say folks, what kind of folks are we talking about? Just ultrasound technologists?
No, we're talking about all physicians. You could be a cardiologist like yourself, vascular surgeon, radiologist, vascular medicine doctor, or any of the crossovers that we know today that people that, use vascular ultrasound, and for all levels of ultrasonographers and RVTs. So I want to have something for everybody. As you know, there's a lot of crossover with this, and just a place where they can see cases from beginning to end. They can see how you can perfect the image, and interpret the findings, and be in a place where we can get to another level.
What was your motivation for for doing this? The fact that you feel that training has been suboptimal and this is something that people really need?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great schools across America, right? But there's still a gap. These programs will have, X amount of length to them. And part of it's didactic, part of it's hands-on. They do various types of rotations and stuff, right? And then depending on where they go, that's kind of their exposure. And then where they wind up in terms of gaining employment, again, that's their exposure. And there are limitations, unfortunately, there are limitations to it. There's certain things that are just not taught in school. Some of the more advanced techniques that we're doing now for patients with chronic limb-threatening ischemia, the pelvic work that we're doing now with the iliocaval and, the pelvic floor and leak points and all that
Right.
stuff.
So tell me, how does it work in the sense of from a practical point of view, if I'm let's say a physician, cardiac surgeon like myself who's into veins, or let's say I'm a cardiologist who's doing diagnostic cardiology. could I come to your site and sign up, let's say, just for superficial venous ultrasonography or deep venous ultrasonography? Or are you even doing things? Are you doing cardiology, echocardiography, or just arterial and venous?
So right now, there's no echo. It's everything, everything venous and everything arterial, head to toe. And there are different layers to this, right? So right now, the site is free. You join, you get
That's
into this,
amazing.
you get this newsletter that you get every week. And every week, I try to be impactful to your education with the newsletter. Like I said, it's going to be completely different each week. And then there's also an associated blog with that you can click on. And that even takes you even further with that. I'm in the process right now. I've just put together a whole bunch of different videos. So what's going to happen eventually is that there'll be a small membership fee associated with the site. And then in there, you can then come into what I'm calling my inner sanctum. And in the inner sanctum, and once you've joined, now you have access to me. So there will be an ongoing chat room where we can now really get into the nitty gritty of, wherever you work, you're dealing with different things, whether or not, you're trying to master a different scan, you're dealing with elements of trying to improve your preliminary report writing, or the physician has questions about different parts of the scans, whatever it is, we now can kind of talk about all this stuff and everybody's going to be able to see it and join into this. So I'm very excited about that because I think with that interaction, everybody that's involved will exponentially grow to
Am-
another level.
Amazing. Are there going to be any live stream sessions?
Yeah, so the plan is to do some live stream. The plan as well is to do different types of webinars. Now, what I'm very passionate about is physicians, especially that interpret these studies. As across the country, we have many physicians that taken the RPVI exam that's sponsored from the ARDMS, right?
I'm
That's
one
where
of them. Yep, I've got the RPHS, RPVI, and RVT. I'm probably the only kook crazy enough to do all three, but I do.
you may be.
Well,
Uh,
I see value in it. I really do. I learned a lot by taking those courses and
right.
exams for that
Mhm.
matter.
Yeah. So, my hope and what's on the board right now is to be able then to offer physicians webinars where, if they want to go take that exam, fantastic. If they just want to just become a better interpreter and really understand more about the performance of the exam and what their RVT or sonographer should be giving them and providing to them when they're acquiring the images, um, just to just get better at what you do. And I think this, at the end of the day, for me, the passion is this all translates into better patient care outcomes. And that's really the motivation with this, right? We want patients to have a very thorough examination and go on and get whatever they need or may not need or follow them or whatever it takes.
Yeah. As you know, Jen, because we know each other a long time, I've had a number of irons in the fire over the years, starting as a cardiac surgeon and then transitioning into the vein world and then doing it full time and creating VitaSupport MD, where we make the supplements, the flavonoids that support circulation. Um, it has been a challenging journey for me in the sense of there's only so many hours in a day. And so, in today's program, of course, I always want to shine light on your business. Tell us the name one more time, please.
Ultrasound Unlocked.
Unlocked, Ultrasound Unlocked. Then they would go to what? Ultrasoundunlocked.com to find out everything about that. Great. And we're going to talk about later in the show how people can find you, social media, and your various handles and so on and so forth. But I do want to get a little bit into that nitty gritty of this show is as much for that purpose as it is for talking to our colleagues in the healthcare world, whether they're doctors, nurses, clinicians of all kinds, APPs, technologists, therapists, etc., who have that extra gear, that extra burning desire to do something outside of their very important and meaningful clinical work. How do you, let's start with this simple question, because that's really, I guess, where I was going with it. How do you find the time to do it all?
That's a great question. Right. So, I mean, many days I am up at 4:30 in the morning. I put together a list at every Sunday early. I put together what's on the board for that week. And between work and the gym and family, I just find a way to split up and divvy that time. And it's just onward. Just got to be very well organized. And this is what's going to be accomplished that week.
Amazing. Now, is is one of your goals to ultimately grow the business to the extent and to the size that you could maybe step back from or away from clinical care altogether?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I guess at this stage, maybe instead of doing the clinical piece 5 days a week, I cut it down to three. That may be something to discuss, in the future. We'll see where that goes. But ultimately, what I want to do is I want to try to help as many, RVTs, ultrasonographers, as well as physicians just become the best version of themselves when it comes to taking care of patients with the use of vascular ultrasound. I mean, that's ultimately the goal here.
Now, from a business point of view, because that's really kind of the main focus of the business of better podcast is this something that you're funding yourself? Do you have any partners? Are you taking outside money? For those of us who are maybe thinking about doing something entrepreneurial on the side, how are you doing it, and what options did you look at in terms of funding a project like this?
Yeah. So that's a good question too. All of this is my own time and my own money. I have not sought out any funds from anybody. I am extraordinarily fortunate to have a gentleman in my life named Victor Salgado, who I know is a very close friend of yours too, with Paramount MD. And he has been a tremendous asset to make this entity come alive because this guy, just everything he touches, it's just unbelievable what he
Vic's a
can,
great guy, and he's
he can
scheduled
do.
to be on the podcast. And Vic is, and I should mention, Vic is a guy who has a very interesting background. I don't want to give it all away now, but in photography and uh, fashion and various things that he did. He's not a clinician. He doesn't have a medical background, but he's learned a lot about health related subjects in the last 25 years that he's been in marketing and various aspects. What would you call Vic at this point? A consultant, a business coach?
I would call him, he's got a lot of descriptors now, business coach, friend, mentor. He's very much a big part of this project.
So let's talk about that a second, because I think that that's a very hot subject, has been for a number of years, but you and I are from the vintage where, generally speaking, I don't think this existed, or if it did, it wasn't nearly as well understood or publicized. For you personally, as a solopreneur, somebody who's building a business by themselves while still working first full time, share your experience in having or how you see the value and the investment of having a business coach working with you.
Well, it's got tremendous value because, as having the clinical savviness of what I do with my particular area of interest, which is vascular ultrasound, there are certain aspects to the business piece that, again, I could read it and I try as much as I can, but I certainly don't have that expertise to the point that is needed to do a project of this magnitude. When you think about everything that goes into this, how to market and all the intricacies that go along with where we are in 2025, with just the whole social media platform. And he's built for that. I mean, he just does this just so extraordinarily well, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned, especially with Vitasupport MD and other projects, the YouTube channel and podcasts, the Lymphcast podcast, lots of things, and, writing books and so forth that I've done over the years. It's amazing for me that as a business grows, it's like a living organism. I studied biology as a undergraduate, which I really enjoyed very much, as the study of living things. And a business or an entrepreneurial venture to me always seems like it becomes a living organism. And then you find that you need people in lots of different places where maybe you didn't anticipate that originally because A, they have the skill set that you don't, and B, you don't, there's only so much time. So if you're going to start doing, let's say, production work, post production, editing, posting, um, writing blogs, et cetera, with time, you find that you need more and more experts. But I think in the early stages, like you said, if you can find a real guru like a Victor Sergato to kind of wear a lot of those hats, especially early on when they're in fledgling stages, it's a powerful resource.
Oh, it certainly is. I mean, in all honesty, we have a call every week, and the learning is every week. There's just another lesson in business and in this whole piece. And again, it's 7 days a week. I live it and breathe it. I love it, because this is what I do. And to see this whole project come to life, each week it just gets a little bit bigger and stronger and faster. So that's, the exciting part of this.
Yeah, that's it. You touched on something that I think raises a great question. Do you think that entrepreneurship and business building, solopreneurship is for everybody?
No,
Thought you might say that.
no, I think you have to have this inner drive, this passion to just keep wanting to get to another level. Um, and the other thing that's interesting with entrepreneurship is that we all have very busy lives and stuff and our families and all these things, but there are going to be sacrifices when you're doing this because you're basically in a room by yourself and you're shedding your skin like a snake because you got to put the time in. Nothing is going to happen without you putting in the time.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line, right? I mean, you got to write something, you got to draw something, you got to put a case together, you got to record something, whatever it is. I mean, no one's going to do it for you. Like it has to come from you. You have to be invested in this and do it. I mean, I certainly have a lot of material now to be able to do something like a project like this, but again, I'm doing all the heavy lifting. And each week I try to just put like kind of another plate on the bar and just keep pushing forward. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what this is turned into. And I try not to think so far ahead. Like I said, I create that board each week on a Sunday, and then, okay, these are the goals this week. Let me just knock this down. Then there'll be goals for the next week, and I just keep moving forward.
Yeah. And did you start out with a formal business plan? It's a question I like to ask a lot of people.
Well, I did. I mean, well, it's changed. I should say it's changed quite a few times from the original thought of what this can be or what I thought it would be. But then as it started to get legs And then, of course, with Victor, all of a sudden, this thing just exponentially grew. And as a result, I have people joining the site from India, Africa, Asia. I mean, through the LinkedIn platform, and I do a lot of posting on there. As you know, I mean, I have reached so many people, and there's so many people, reaching out to me and asking questions and things like that. And it's tremendous. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, it's amazing. We live in a golden age, and we have this incredible capacity to have a global audience and a global business community, um, which is quite amazing. And that brings me to another subject. You talk about doing the heavy lifting. I know you've always been into, working out and keeping in shape, and so you're a person who understands that sacrifice you talked about, and that there's got to be a part of you that enjoys working against resistance, right? If you can't get underneath the barbell and do those chest presses, um, then you're not going to get any stronger, which is okay. Not everybody has to be, particularly strong physically, but if you do want to put on muscle mass and be strong and so forth, you have to work against resistance. And I think that that takes a certain personality. Now, on the other side of that, we hear so much about AI, Chat GPT, and all of these different things. Um, but you mentioned how you have to have the knowledge and you have to put together the materials and you have a compendium. I know, knowing you for probably close to 20 years, looking at some of the beautifully not only captured ultrasonographic images, but the way that you collated them, organized them, put them together years ago, long before we had all this technology. But for our listeners out there who may be new to this, do you think that AI and Chat GPT is going to be the panacea that people see it as, doing all the work for us, replacing the human mind, replacing the human work ethic, spirit, drive, ambition, and all of that? Or is it just another tool in the toolbox?
I think it's a great tool. And I'm amazed from week to week if I do use it to ask it a question and want to know something right there on the spot. But, to go back to, that word we've used a few times in this, sacrifice. Well, along with sacrifice is discipline, and you have to have the discipline. If you're lifting weights, you want to eat clean, right? It all kind of comes together. And I think having the discipline to sit and do the work, it's a big piece to this. I don't think AI replaces all of this. I think I'm still fascinated by the mind and how we think and how we look at things and our vision. So I mean, do I use AI? Yes. Do I think it's going to replace everything that we do? No.
Yeah, I find that when I'm using I mean, there are certain times where I'm using it more like a search engine, and I probably use it at a very rudimentary level compared to some people. Um, as you said, to answer a question, look things up, etc. And then, of course, you need to, as a professional, especially if you're going to use it in healthcare and so forth, you want to really authenticate some of those uh, that information and those answers to know that they're really valid, because that's a concern too with AI. It can pop up something fast and pretty. It doesn't always make it accurate. But I have found that as a cardiovascular surgeon specializing in veins with a tremendous interest in the dietary supplements and the flavonoids, micronized purified flavonoid fraction, and all of those other things at VitaSupport, when I do use it, let's say to help me prepare a lecture or to prepare written material that's going to be published, let's say a magazine article or something like that, I find that for that material to really be of high quality, I'm really feeding the computer a tremendous amount of myself and my knowledge and my insights and my, subtleties. Otherwise, it comes out quite poorly. Even if it were accurate, it's not it's not deep. It's not really saying anything. It doesn't sound like Dr. John Chuback saying it's more superficial. Um, are you finding the same thing that you really need to pour your own heart and soul and mind and knowledge into it to really get the best out of it?
Yeah, 100%. It has to have that human touch, that human feel to it. Otherwise, it's just something else that's written and it doesn't have that touch.
Yeah.
And
And,
I
and
think I was just going to add, if I could,
yeah,
you and I come from a place where, when we study and want to read something, we're kind of, I don't want to say old school, but we come from a place where we want to hold that textbook, hold that article, and
right,
I still enjoy that. I enjoy doing that. I'd rather, if I find an article that I want to read, I would rather print it and then, through the course of the day, read through it. I enjoy that a lot more than reading something online.
right. Now, in your entrepreneurial ventures, we've talked a lot about Ultrasound Unlocked, which is the online program. But I have seen through social media, LinkedIn, you and I are very, very active and work um, together, feeding off of each other and LinkedIn all the time. I see that you're also doing on site visits. That must be part of your entrepreneurial venture as well.
It is. It is.
Tell
So
us about that. Yeah.
yeah, so again, through the Unlock platform, there's different modes, right? So there's stuff for free, there's stuff, on the web that we can do together. And then I can come to you. And then that platform is basically one-on-one mentorship. So whether or not I'm coaching one person, it could be an RVT or it could be a physician, or it's a group of folks over a bunch of days. And I actually enjoy that the best because I get to come into your environment and I help you optimize your space. So if there's any equipment issues or staffing issues or the performance and the interpretation of the exams, how to best optimize your ultrasound so you get the highest performance out of that when you're administering these exams. That's a big piece of what we do, right? To answer the clinical question. So I got to tell you, I enjoy so much that interaction of going to somebody's clinic or hospital and working with them like that.
Yeah. And so there's education in that in terms of the didactic aspect of ultrasonography itself,
Hands-on.
image quality, anatomy, knobology, all of those things. But at the same time, definitely sounds like you are in the consulting genre too, in the sense that you're going in, you're looking at a space, you're trying to optimize that space ergonomically, technologically, human resource wise, maybe advising, a physician who might have a technologist, this and that this person may have certain strengths, weaknesses that need to be worked on, et cetera. So that's a pretty robust program that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, you summarized a lot of it very nicely, but yeah, that's kind of what it is, But the big meat and potatoes is that when we're doing scans together, and I have these folks bring in their hard cases that they've had difficulties with, some of the bigger legs and patients with ulcerations and the vein stuff and a lot of these post-thrombotic cases where they're going to have an outflow obstruction. And, we kind of dig into that and scan it and, pull out all the information so they can, come up with a formidable treatment plan for that patient.
Yeah. Jan, as we come near the end of our time together, um, one of the things that find, I think, surprising is that a lot of people who think that those of us who get into entrepreneurial um, endeavors, um, that we're either going to kind of go belly up in no time and, lose our shirts and lose whatever money we invested. Or on the other hand, they think that it's just a gold rush, and they think, boy, we're making money hand over fist, and really raking it in. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I can speak for myself that for me the truth has been somewhere in the middle. That I've been successful with many of the uh, ventures that I've gotten involved in, not all of them, but I've been fortunate and worked hard to make sure that several have been successful. But it took me years in order to monetize those programs, those businesses, Vita Support MD as one example. Um, Not because the business wasn't profitable out of the gate, but because we reinvested all of the money back into the business to grow it. And that's a very, very, that's part of the art of business, knowing how much to put back in, how long to do that, how big to grow it. Because eventually, I mean, with all of the philanthropic aspect, we want to educate, we want to teach, we want to share, we want to help others grow. The point of a business ultimately is to acquire customers, um, and uh, and make profits. And otherwise, it's a hobby, it's a philanthropy, it's a charity. Um, what advice do you have for new medical entrepreneurs, people in the healthcare space who are thinking about getting into the business end of things as opposed to just having a job, in terms of what their expectations might be in terms of when do you actually start making money? When does a payday come? I know there's variability in there, but I'd like to have, your thought on it.
Well, right now, I mean, I'm still in my infancy. When I go and I do a private one-on-one coaching, I mean, I get my fee for that consultation. Um, you know, what I hope for the website eventually is to grow this to the point where, I'm going to have a couple of thousand people worldwide in the site in any given day. And, they're paying their small, 10, 15, $20 a month membership to be part of this big universe that I'm creating. So that's kind of a little look at my piece. Look, I think at the end of the day, for me, with what I'm doing, I have an audience already, and I have people that actually they need the help, you know?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
they really will benefit from this because the skills that I teach them, they're going to have these skills for life, right? They're just going to be exponentially better at what they do, right? But getting back to your question, I just think that, again, you got to have that passion. You got to have that discipline and you got to be willing to sacrifice. But I think you got to know what that niche is, and what you are willing to go through to be able to deliver that service. Are you going to be all in and are you going to stay the course? I go back to you. You had this idea about this supplement, and it has changed the lives of so many people, right? And you could have fallen off course, and you sure there were times of frustration and things like that. But again, you had that tenacity that you stood that course, and look what it's turned into, right? So again, I just think that you got to have that forward thinking and you got to have that product that you're willing to be all in. Now, in terms of the money, well, nothing, there's no guarantees with that.
Right.
So you got to be willing to, you're going to have to spend money to make money. And if you're going to be all in, then you just got to, go in and you got to be as smart as you can and you got to have good people around you to advise you. I think that that's another important piece, right? I feel like for you and I, like we know what we know, right?
Right.
But there are aspects that, we have other folks that we can consult,
Yeah. Well,
to
you
get
raise
what
a
they
great
know
point.
very well.
Well, we know what we know, and then we know what we don't know. But then there's the third piece that we don't know what we don't know. So there's a part of, in my entrepreneurial ventures over the last, let's say, 15 years, Vita Support MD being 10 years old now, um, there, I knew a lot. And then I knew that there were many things related to business that I didn't know, that I was going to need help with or learn. And then there are so many things along the journey that revealed themselves about things that I didn't know that I didn't even know existed. So that's part of the that's part of the challenge, but it's also part of the fun of the process is the learning yourself. You're you want to achieve something, but it can be a wonderful journey in and of itself as you travel that road of trying to build a business that serves other people, whether it's through services like consulting, education, or products like supplements, or let's say any kind of durable medical equipment. We're going to have people on the show who, let's say, are in the compression garment business, people who are in the compression device, pneumatic compression device, other technologies. Whether it's a service or a product or a combination of the two, um, you've got to have that knowledge, but then there are a lot of other people that need to get engaged to help you bring that and develop it into a real business so that you can serve other people and then hopefully see some reward and return on your investment, not just your financial investment, but your time investment. A program like this today, you and I are taking the time to do it. Our time is valuable. So this is an investment. It's not coming out of our pocket directly, but it's an investment. And people who want to get involved in entrepreneurship and business have to be willing to, as you said, spend money and spend resources in order to get a return. And when that return comes and how big it is, those are all the intangibles that none of us can ever know the answers to, even with the best laid plans. I'm not a big business plan guy because I didn't go to business school, but even when you do lay out a great business plan, there can be a lot of surprises. So hopefully some pleasant surprises, not all unpleasant, but surprises nonetheless. I always say, if it were easy, everybody would be doing this.
Right.
And not everybody has to do it. Having a great profession, having a great job, making a great living, having steady work, taking care of your family and so forth, providing is is great. But for whatever reason, there are those of us like Jan Sloves from Ultrasound Unlocked who have that extra something that says, hey, I'd like to see if I could build something here. I'd like to see if I can reach people with my skill set, my knowledge base beyond my two hands scanning in the clinic. And I, for one, see that as a very noble ambition and enterprise. And Jan Sloves, I wish you all the best of luck. And as you know, I'm always in your corner to help you out however I can. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners? Specifically about any wisdom that you might be able to share now in terms of medical entrepreneurship. And then let's close with you sharing all the ways that our listeners could get in touch with you.
So I guess the last word here is, again, I've learned a lot in the last couple of years about this. You got to be willing to be all in. You got to be committed. And as we stated a little earlier in this program, the sacrifice and the discipline, you got to be able to put the reps in because otherwise it's that dream of where you want to see this and what you want to do. It's just not going to happen. So for me, that's the big piece. You got
Got
to be willing to do the work
to do the hard work, and it's got to be consistent.
every
Can't be
week.
once in a while, right? And it's got to be some intensity. I agree with all those things. And finally, for our viewers, how could they get in touch with you? A, if they want to learn more about Ultrasound Unlocked. Um, B, if they want to consult you or contact you about maybe coming out, visiting their clinic and doing some education and consulting work?
Okay, so there's two ways that you can reach me. You can reach me through the LinkedIn platform. You can find me on there, Jan Sloves. And then once you
Just for
can,
our listeners, we'll hopefully we'll have those links, but it's JanSloves, Jan Sloves.
right, you can go to the LinkedIn platform. You can then message me through there, or you can right there, you'll see the link to Ultrasound Unlocked. And there, once you click on that, you'll have the ability to set up a discovery call with me. And then whatever, you're thinking in terms of, your from your whole ultrasound perspective, we can then have, book a 30-minute call and have a discussion about that. And let's see if we can come up with a formula that I can help you optimize your particular setting.
Fantastic. And for those who may not have LinkedIn, I assume it's ultrasoundunlocked.com.
Yes.
Perfect. So, with that, I want to thank my friend Jan Sloves for being on the Business of Better podcast, where we talk about businesses that hopefully, in the end, help people feel and get better. And I know Jan's been committed to vascular ultrasound for many years now, and he certainly has had a major impact on the lives of many people with vascular disease in New York City and beyond through the work that he does. And now we'll be touching lives truly globally, which is quite a remarkable accomplishment in a very, very storied um, career. So, Jen, thanks again for being on the
Thank you
program.
so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Bye.